जय हिंद, जय भारत एंड वेलकम टू डेफ टॉक्स. दिस इज आदि अचिंत. आइए समझें जियोपॉलिटिक्स को एक भारतीय नजरिए से.
So India has a mindset where it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch the post.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है. हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat and welcome to Def Talks. Another session on economics. We have with us Mr. Saurav Jha. Guys, last time we discussed what's happening around the world. As a matter of fact, we talked about the BRICS currency, we talked about de-dollarization, we talked about a whole lot of things. इस बार ही थोड़ा बात करते हैं about something totally different. A lot of people in India are little nervous कि साहब ये ट्रम्प आएगा, पता नहीं टैरिफ लगाएगा, what will he do, what will happen to our Indian economy, how will things go forward. People are nervous, there's no question about it. And देखिए, the Republicans were known for what? Interfering in your internal affairs. Trump is known for tariffs. So let's find out what is Trump's plan, how will it impact us, and what are the opportunities in front of Bharat. Namaskar, Jai Hind. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in. It'll be interesting.
Thank you for having me, Aadi.
My pleasure. So, sir, पहले ये बताओ, I mean, people in India are kind of nervous कि यार, boss, tariffs will come, Indian economy will get hit. Oh, Trump is, you guys don't understand. Trump is like that. He's not going to, let us grow. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Whole lot of things. How much truth do you see in this whole narrative?
Well, let's do an objective assessment of the issue. Adi, with your permission, before I come to tariffs and what Trumponomics may mean for that, let's have a look at something more fundamental to the economy. Let's look at the way hydrocarbon prices might behave in the coming months and a year, probably, with Trump's, sort of coming to power in the United States. Because what you pay at the filling station obviously has a huge impact on your wallet.
On everything.
Right. Mm-hmm. And your ability to buy other goods and services. And of course, the price of oil itself has a pass-through effect on general inflation in the economy. Right. And since India is a consumption-driven economy, we always have to keep an eye out for these effects. Right. And then, of course, the overall effect on growth subsequent to that because of the impact on demand. So, as far as on the energy side of things, we have, of course, Trump's headline statement, which is "drill, baby, drill," right? Almost a clarion call to US producers to amp up output. And Adi, as you know, the United States is actually the largest producer of crude in the world, right? Its output last year was double that of Saudi Arabia. It was at 22%, whereas the Saudis produced about 11% of global oil output. And, I'm talking about everything, conventional sources, shale oil, tight oil, all of those put together. So drill, baby, drill would seem to suggest that, US, there will be a marked step up in US oil supply across the world. And that may lead to a fall in prices. But the situation is not quite as simple. If you look at America itself, if drill baby drill means deregulation and the extension of opportunity for drilling federal acreages, right? If federal lands are allowed to be drilled for hydrocarbons, oil, or even, of course, shale gas as well and gas as well. So in that event, whoever chooses to drill, as the law stands at the moment, will have to pay 25%. Of the price of output to the US government as taxes. Now, given that Trump is going to give tax cuts across the board here and there, it remains to be seen whether he'll see this as a way to, shore up revenues or not, federal acreages. Of course, but if deregulation ends up helping other drilling places as well, and also the what do you call that? There are incentives given to the production of drilling equipment as well in America, bringing down the cost of that and the available and increasing the availability of that. Even then, there is no guarantee that higher US output will lead to a fall in global oil prices. Because I'll tell you why. Because the United States is also going to may come after may increase its amp up its sanctions framework against both Venezuela and Iran, right? During the last Trump administration, Iran was being able to put only 400,000 barrels of oil on the export market. That has increased to about 1.8 billion, not 400,000 barrels, I mean per day. What I meant is barrels per day, and now that has increased to 1.8 million barrels per day. So there's a 4.5 times increase, a 4.5x increase in what they are being able to put on the global market, and this is all sanctioned oil. So we are not, if they amp up sanctions against Iran, we might again see that falling close to that figure again, if they really amp up sanctions against Iran, right? So there is this net effect that we will have to look at, whether, because you see, there is one issue. The price at which American unconventional resources make sense may not be the price that we may want, right? The price of crude is at the Western Texas Intermediate was at around $75 for most of this year, isn't it? So that might not be the price that is suitable for them given their cost structure, their general cost structure. So there is this issue. But at the same time, if more oil does come into the market and they also find a way to reduce their costs, maybe they get deregulation and maybe government support from Trump helps them bring down their cost of production. All these maybes, if they come together, it could be that the price of oil might go down also. That could also happen. And in any case, American oil coming into the market and with not that much Venezuelan and Iranian oil off the market will mean that the Russians may have to give us even sweeter deals. Okay. Because we are going to, because we will turn to American oil as well. American cargoes will also come to India. So that is just, I'm talking about crude oil. But on the gas side of things, because you often hear our petroleum minister talking about how we are trying to shift from oil to gas, how an oil to gas transition is underway. Now, incidentally, this is nothing new. We've been talking about this for the last 12, 13 years now. I was actually commissioned to do a report for the government via FICCI many years ago for precisely on the issue of US gas exports to India, the feasibility of US gas exports to India. And you would know, Adi, today, as things stand today, the United States has surpassed the UAE as the second largest supplier of liquefied natural gas to India. Right. So why I started with this, one is of course the price matters, and the price that we'll pay at the pump matters. Oil and gas is definitely an area, and energy in general, that Trump and his government will look at very closely for narrowing the trade deficit with India. And if the circumstances so inhere, or if the circumstances so emerge, I think India would be quite happy to oblige them on this front, because it is already obliging them, right? If what is called the Japanese Korea market, if the price of that falls to stays above $10 per MMBTU, then more US LNG cargoes will come this way. So that is the thing. So the reason I began with this is there is something they definitely want to sell to us, okay, under the new regime, under drill baby drill, and that is ONG. They definitely want to sell more of that to India. Now comes the other thing. So that means there's something they want from us, right? When you enter into a tariff negotiation with the Trump administration, it's all about how badly which side wants what, right? Because the old WTO dispute resolution mechanism is no longer in place at the moment. That was destroyed by the last Trump administration when it refused to appoint new judges. When it vetoed the appointment of new judges that was required for a quorum in the appellate authority of the WTO, which is their apex dispute resolution body. So that is not there anymore. So the WTO, while you can have these panel judgments being given, there is no appellate authority anymore that is there which can settle disputes. So now disputes are being settled bilaterally, essentially through the so-called WTO umbrella, right? And what matters now most of all at the WTO is now the ministerial conference, the annual ministerial conferences, where decisions can only be taken by consensus, as you know. So over the years, what has happened is, the reason why I'm mentioning this, because whenever you talk about tariffs, you talk about negotiations as well, right? So as things stand right now, whatever it may be, the Trump administration will definitely enter into a series of negotiations with India before it takes a precipitate step just like that. It is much more likely to take a precipitate step against China, much more likely. Okay, you may see actions unfold against China, all the promises that have been made of 60% tariffs and all that may unfold more rapidly than similar tariffs on India via Section 301. If you remember, I think it's 310. If you remember correctly, even the last time over, India actually got the least of the tariff stick amongst major trading partners of the United States. Okay. By the end of 2019, about 14% of Indian exports to the United States had tariff coverage.
Oh.
India was not, and India had retaliated by slapping new tariffs on about 6% of US exports to India. That is how things stood. One way in which they harmed India was by removing India from the generalized system of preferences, right? Which affected about $6 billion worth of Indian exports to America. They removed Turkey also, not soon after. So what we saw was, like in 2018, when the trade war began, when Trump launched the trade war, India was not exempt from the tariffs which were put on aluminium and steel at the time. And India took a while to respond to that. India said it would respond, took a while, and then responded only in 2019 in a big way. Initially, the talk was we would, put tariffs on $10.6 billion worth of US imports. I mean, exports from America. But we didn't do that. We sort of let the negotiations play out. And the Americans began the GSP review in 2018, but it was enforced only in 2019, in June 2019. Right, notified in April 2019 and came into effect in June 2019. So the reason I'm mentioning this is, there was clearly a lot of negotiation underway between India and the United States. So Trump is unlikely to take a precipitate step overnight against India, despite his rhetoric about India being the worst and being the tariff king and all that. Okay, because see, ultimately the US and India are on the same page as far as certain other things are concerned. Now the thing is, Indo-US tariff wars have continued even after Trump. It's not like it was only a few months ago that we resolved that last dispute. Out of the 7 disputes that we had, we settled that last dispute about poultry prices, and the US wanted compensation because even though it had won the case at both the panel and appellate levels, it had continued the case at the WTO against India and was not satisfied with what India had done subsequent to the judgments given on the case. And 6 other disputes were also resolved in last year when Modi went to meet Biden during that state visit. Right, that is when those were settled as well. However, just a few weeks ago, a counter notification was sent to the WTO by the United States, along with some of their allies like Canada, Australia, Argentina, right, the usual suspects, about the support India is giving to its agricultural sector, minimum support prices, etc. But that is nothing new. This has been the big bone of contention between India and all these developed. Of course, Argentina is not developed. It flunked its chance at becoming a developed country. But that is a long-running thing. All these developed partners of the United States and the United States itself at the WTO. To put it mildly, India and the United States have been arch enemies at the WTO forever, by the way. Okay. There's nothing new over there. So So, and see, the first time the counter notification was done in recent years was in 2018 itself by the Trump administration. Then
Huh.
another, that time only the US did it on Indian subsidies to its agricultural sector. Then another was done in 2023. This time it was joined by Thailand and Paraguay also, along with Canada and Australia. Okay, and Ukraine. And this time there is Canada, Australia, Ukraine, and America, and Argentina. All of them have again filed the same counter notification. We are giving support prices that is leading to overproduction, and then we are dumping it on global markets, right? Wheat and rice. This is their typical complaint against India. But does it mean that India has no cards to play? India has cards to play as well. India and South Africa are resolutely opposed to an extension of the tax exemption that has been given to e-commerce since 1998. Right? E-commerce has been exempted from taxes at the by consensus at the WTO since 1998. Right? And as you know, now e-commerce is not a minor matter anymore; it's a major matter. So we are hugely losing out on revenues over there. So this is something that was in the Indian side is also pushing hard against the overfishing practices of the United States, Japan, and many other countries. Right, on the fisheries side, the subsidies being given to fishing industries in the North Pacific and the North Atlantic are definitely depleting fish stocks at an alarming rate. So India is pushing hard against that. India has also been pushing to get IPR waivers on vaccines and medical equipment. Of course, on this matter with RFK coming in, the Trump administration may not care about this, right? Because we really don't know what they think about big pharma. Big pharma may not be the greatest, whether big pharma in America will get dented or not, may not be the greatest consideration for the Trump administration. So,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is the picture that emerges is on the negotiating table, there are both new things that they want as well as some old things that they may not care about so much anymore. Okay. And on the Indian side, there are some important levers that we still have, but some levers may not be there anymore also. But at the same time, see, the overall picture is one where Indo-US complementarity on the economic side, on the geo-economic side, is actually growing. Like Russia, America is also now wants to become a huge exporter. It has always been, and like Russia, its most competitive industries are now showing that same kind of mix. Some of them are at the highest end of the spectrum, jet engines, semiconductors, etc., and some of the others are at the on the primary side of things, right? Just minerals and materials and and energy exports. Of course, drilling, to be clear, it is because of the technological strength of America that it is able to reach minerals that people could not reach economically earlier, right? Otherwise the shale gas revolution wouldn't have happened. Without horizontal drilling and fracking and the US excellence attained in both these areas, you would not have had all this shale gas come to the market anyway from America. Having said that, Trump's entire politics, in my view, seems designed to now prime America to become a mineral exporter also. Okay, an exporter of minerals, to revive mining in the United States, to also become a fertilizer exporter possibly, right? So America definitely is moving in that direction, which means deregulation, so that certain acreages across America can be used. But it also means that they need a market for this. And which is the biggest market for this now? With their war against China, with their trade war against China, the market will be India only for minerals, right? Especially as we start rising up the manufacturing value chain. So there is this complementarity which will create a lot of space for negotiation between India and the United States on the tariff front. If these tariffs are just a priori put on India, will they hurt India? Yes, they will to an extent, because now India's exports to America are 75 to 80 billion dollars, and it will depend on how much of that is covered by tariffs. Now, I'll give you an example. When America put tariffs on steel in March 2018, covering almost $800 million worth of Indian steel exports, in the subsequent 12 months, Indian steel exports fell by almost half to America. Indian exports to America, steel exports fell by half. But Just one more thing. Those were already under pressure because of numerous counter dumping disputes that had been raised by America, okay,
Okay.
at the
Okay.
WTO.
Yes.
Okay, so
Makes
those
sense.
were already under pressure. So we have, as always, you have to take a nuanced view of things. Although somebody will say, do the words nuance and can the words nuance and Trump really be uttered in the same sentence? No.
I
See,
think that's a little bit of a,
uh,
this thing, because people, he's a business guy at the end of it. Yeah, I mean, the guy knows how to deal. He's not made billions of dollars without being nuanced to a certain extent. I mean,
so
let's.
they will want, if we relent on the energy and minerals import front from the United States, okay, because that is also not going to be too easy, because we are also trying to revive domestic mining at the moment. But in my view, we can still keep our we still have the horizon for keeping our own, mineral wealth under the ground and importing from elsewhere, if it's so, if the case if it's so if it is so required, because we should currently look at being an exporter of value added items only, right? We should not look at
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, the trade between India and China is still lopsided, not just because of the huge deficit, but also because of the fact that we export iron ore to them, whereas they are trying to dump steel on us, right? So what I can see is there's going to be, right off the gate, right out of the gate, Trump is going to go hard on China, and that is going to create trade diversion opportunities for India. Okay, China is going to desperately look for outlets for its overproduction, cereal overproduction. Obviously, it is already sending feelers to India that, oh, we'll open pharma and IT in our country for you,
Yeah.
etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Even though our talk is now of dual circulation and moving out of older industries and all that. So, but you agree to RCEP with us. It'll be the biggest mistake if we do that. Okay, we should not do that. America is still,
Yes.
the American market will still be open, relatively open than the Chinese market will be. Because this fear mongering is being done about how America will come out hard after us on the pharma and services fronts. But with RFK and Trump and the signaling they're doing, maybe not. Maybe as vaccine production and vaccine R&D goes down in America, maybe that's a huge opportunity for India, which is in any case the world's largest vaccine manufacturer.
Hmm.
It's not the developer of most of the world's vaccines, but whatever.
Hmm.
It has developed its own vaccines as well, as we saw during COVID, which worked quite decently well. So anyway, so the thing is that the opportunity is very much there for the taking, provided our people negotiate hard and are firm where they need to be firm, and they probably will be, because honestly, throughout throughout independent India's history, this is one front on which no government has yielded that easily. Okay, the trade and tariff front. Ah,
You
nobody
know,
has yielded.
for
Ah.
me, it is, for me, I look at it as an opportunity, and I said this before in the channel. Really need your this thing, because we need to, as entrepreneurs in India, need to analyze, yeah, what is China going to lose, right? And if, let's say, there are 60% tariffs on China, which is what he's been saying, and 10% tariffs on India, that's still a 50% gap.
Yeah, but that also depends on what the cost of production is, what the quality of goods are, what the nature of the goods are. All
Yeah,
those
I
things
mean,
will
see,
matter, right?
that's the game. That's the game. That's the game for the entrepreneurs to kind of come up and
See,
level up. Yeah.
Large Indian conglomerates have to invest on R&D and create a domestic supply chain. They just keep complaining about the cost of production in India, about interest rates,
वो तो our
overheads,
corporates are
logistics, etc.,
corporates are
so on
terrible
and so
that way.
forth. So we have to incentivize, we have to disincentivize the current way of doing business and incentivize their investments into the Indian supply chain.
R&D. Hmm. You know, when you
But
look
what
at people
happened?
like
Yeah.
when you look
No,
at
go
people like
ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Narayan Murthy, he talks about working 70, 80, 90 hours a week and this and that. I've never heard him saying, "Ki boss, let's start researching. Let's start building something new. Let's start creating new processes, creating new systems, creating new this thing." I have never heard any of these guys talking in that language. They
Yeah, and
want
they tend to get.
people to become like, I don't know, workaholics and keep on working, but they don't want to come out and say, "Ki bhai, encourage people to create something new."
So let's come to the other thing then. So what has, Indian patent output is increasing, Indian
Yeah,
trademark output
149%
is
over the past
rising,
1 year. Yeah.
but a lot of that is concentrated in the global capability centers that you see in India,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Now, in my view, if Trump and company go hard on the H-1B visa side and other issues as well, I don't think that's a net negative for the general, environment for moving R&D to India by Western corporates. Ah, the general sense, if the general sense is it'll be more and more difficult to get people over here. Not that, somebody working in a global capability center doesn't have to travel to America, but that's on a different kind of visa altogether. So, if the general sense is that, or those, it is going to become more and more difficult to do R&D, get guys over here to do R&D every now and then, except via, say, the although Trump has said that we are all for getting the best minds here and legal immigration, and I'm sure they're going to keep picking the best STEM minds from India, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. They'll keep trying to, especially with Musk basically leading this government along with Trump. I think that they're going to
Yeah,
do
that's
more,
what will
try to
happen.
do more
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But even then, even that being the case, I still see more global capability centers moving to India. So it's not, overall, it's not completely negative. And of course, they
Hmm.
will use the visa. The visa regime will definitely be used as a negotiating tool by them
Why not?
vis-a-vis
Why not?
us,
See,
right?
again, a lot of
So
people are trying to scaremonger people. I tweeted about this as well in the morning. Firstly, if he's gonna look at NRIs who have American passports, what the hell does it make a difference to me? It's not my this thing. They are NRIs. That's it. They are not Indian citizens. It's not my
no,
responsibility to start taking care of
now,
them.
Adi, let me just correct you. NRIs are Indian citizens.
I
PIOs are
mean,
not Indian
I'm
citizens.
yeah,
Yeah.
PIO. Sorry, my apologies. They are American passport holders. They're his citizens. It's not my responsibility to take care of them. That's point one. Two, when there are people who are there on H1Bs and this and that, if he starts pushing them out, well, that's damn good for me because at the end of it, the brain drain will reduce.
The what I see it is, it will force the Mr. Narayan Murthis of the world to recalibrate their model in the long run,
Thank you.
or even in the
Yes.
medium run, because the labor arbitrage model that he's constantly basically espousing with his 70-hour week, 80-hour week, and basically essentially paying labor much less than its productivity. That is what is being,
Yeah.
what the undercurrent is of such views.
True. True.
What lies under such views basically.
Mhm.
Now, what has happened in the West also? In the West, why do you think demand failure has happened in certain pockets of the economy? Precisely because of this, because
Yep.
labor has not been paid according to productivity.
Mm.
And
Especially in these kind of
yeah,
companies
yeah,
in India, it's
the
terrible. The pay
dreaded
scales.
the dreaded China price, which allowed them to conquer manufacturing the world over, was also done using this only. Labor
Yeah.
there was not paid according to its productivity. So this is a very old problem, and this is now a problem that has spilled over into the 21st century in all the so-called high-tech arenas as well. Now, what I see is that Narayan Murthy and company need to start creating world beating products of their own. They have to, this is nothing new. They should have done it 10 years ago, right? For the last 10 years, have we seen the kind of movement we should have seen on the product side? No. New products have
No.
come out. Some new products have come out. There's SaaS, there's all that. But there is nothing that is really world beating or game changing that will lead to, disruption in existing industries, which is why I have always been a votary of innovation based import substitution, not just import
Okay.
substitution of existing items, but you innovate to create a better product or a new class of product that replaces an existing kind of product altogether, right?
So
So
here,
anyway,
can I stop you? Can I just add
yeah.
something to you? And can you please, you're hitting that, and there's a ringing thought in my mind. Previously the concentration, and Modi Saab has come and said manufacturing, manufacturing, manufacturing. Previously, the whole game used to be services. So services were basically what? ये फोन है, इसको इसके साथ कवर में डालो, डब्बे में डालो, and push it out. That's your service. That's what you're trying to do. This was the job that a lot of people are doing. It was monotonous. It was regular. And converting it to IT was what? Coding, adding some data somewhere here, data management, and this and that. That's all we were doing. So our programming within these corporates have been basically to do regular tasks. So how much of that has an impact on trying to change the thought process today?
See, Adi, to be fair, high-end services are not easy to replicate at scale and at the kind of cost point that Indian companies can do. Which is why,
Okay.
despite talk of Philippines taking away business and this taking away business, that never really happened to the extent that people thought it would. These guys have innovated in what they do, but that's not the only place where you can keep innovating, nor can your economy's incentive structure be directed only towards that, hoping that the comparative advantage in that sector will last forever. You have to diversify, find new sectors, and move up the value chain. Right.
Hmm.
For instance, I'll cut to a discussion I was having in 2016 when two people from the IT sector were telling me, "Do you know something?" And from the Indian IT sector, what is the biggest? And this is 2016, 8 years ago. You know what is the biggest issue? Till date, nobody has really been able to get code to write code. This is 2016. And today, if you see what Google and company are saying, 25% of their code is being written by code only now, by AI,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So that has changed. That has changed. That is an entire stream of business which is now being eroded rapidly. Right. So you are
Wow.
trying to so the Indian IT sector is obviously already trying to reinvent itself by moving into other areas that are more relevant to the kind of services that need to be outsourced today and need to be service and the kind of businesses that need to be serviced. There are enough people writing about that also on what the Indian IT sector is doing, what it is moving to. But what I'm trying to say is there we don't have that tangible brand power on the world stage. Okay, in
Hmm.
terms of
Hmm.
products. And these people, with the kind of reserves they had and the kind of money they had and the kind of connections and the kind of manpower that they had, these huge IT majors were uniquely placed to move into other areas. Okay, they should not only be people, oh, let somebody else take the risk. And we found something of this sort recently when somebody said we don't need large language models. Okay, that should not be a play. Let them take the risk and invest the money and make it. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway,
Hmm.
so that's just one example that reflects the entire mindset. But that is another thing. The thing is that maybe maybe when push comes to shove, maybe these guys will reinvent themselves, who knows? Or maybe new companies. See, another thing, there has to be, when you talk about capitalism, there will be creative destruction, right? Otherwise, what is the point of capitalism? The problem with creative destruction and creative disruption ends up hurting way too many people. But in some cases, it might be required also for a country to stand on its feet. I'm not saying that these guys need to be disrupted, because then the macroeconomic shock to India will be too heavy, right? Because see, what we did during liberalization was we let all the manufacturing go to China and East Asia and concentrate there, and we focused on this outsourcing. And this is what gave the multiplier to our economy for a good 25-year period. But we have to diversify, we have to move into manufacturing, and services is also contingent on manufacturing. Today, a single manufacturing job, okay, has a network connection to 7 other services sector jobs, right? So it's not like if you don't manufacture anything, what are you going to service? You'll obviously service things that are being manufactured elsewhere. And so how much of that do you think you'll be able to capture? How much of that share you'll be able to capture?
Hmm.
Especially in a world where all kinds of non-tariff barriers are being put in place anyway, apart from the tariff war that we are talking about. You have to move up the value chain in manufacturing. You have to diversify your manufacturing base. You have to increase the size of your manufacturing base. You have to increase the minimum. You have to increase the scale of your manufacturing in various sectors. Because see, increasing returns to scale is seen in many manufacturing sectors. Okay, many. China has managed to withstand this trade war and all the tribulations of the past 10 years because of the sheer scale it has built in various manufacturing sectors. That scale is not easy to beat. But now maybe the next round of assault on it will begin soon.
You never know.
Right? Why
Hmm.
is Indian pharma so difficult to beat? Because of the scale it has built. Why
Scale,
is
yeah.
Bangladeshi textile output difficult to beat in various segments? Because of the scale that has been built over there, right? Again, that is another opportunity. As this, with the Trump administration, and maybe turmoil in Bangladesh will spread to tariffs on Bangladesh also, on top of all the other things that are happening in Bangladesh, it could well be that a new opportunity presents itself for Eastern India to rise as a textile hub, right? Especially Bihar and all, where the costs are much lower than even Bangladesh.
UP has taken the
Ah,
cake. Yeah, 10,000 crores. UP Yogi is already put in 10,000 crores into that bloody this thing. That's the thing.
yeah,
The reaction from the local governments has to be supremely fast. He in the
supremely
first 10 days
fast.
announced, boss, come here, come here. And he
But
started
Adi,
doing it. He's gonna pick up.
But Adi, as you know, the problem in India has never been the central government. It has always been the state governments. Okay,
Here
and
is a state,
and
yeah,
how
here is a
fast.
state government who's kind of interested in doing stuff. He said, I'll give you 10,000 crores, build up of this thing, start off. Up now, I don't know how much of that is going to actually come out into the open and how much of that will kind of resonate and how much of that will actually result in something. But the sheer factor that he did that shows you that what you're saying in the Northeast, in Bengal and Bihar, there was a huge opportunity that was basically missed.
So coming back to Trump, I don't think he's going to move ahead on some Section 301 kind of tariffs on India as he did with China, and he
Mm.
can move beyond that also with the kind of executive power he has, and Congress and Senate both being controlled by the Republicans. But I don't think he's going to move on Section 301 vis-a-vis India just like that. He won't. There'll be a whole, at least for 6 months, you'll see a lot of hectic negotiations on various issues. Now, the other thing is, the other reason why they won't do that is because, see, they are, for their overall military competition with China, they need India, right? It's not like they don't need India. They need India at one basic level. They need India for the repair of their ships at a cost-effective rate. They have entered into master ship repair, agreements with L&T and all. And you've seen
Yeah.
U.S. Navy ships being already. They have entered into such agreements with the South Koreans also. But the South Korea is not going to be enough for this. They definitely need India. This is just one instance I'm citing. Another thing that you will see, despite Trump's push to revive naval shipbuilding in America, they will need to outsource the construction of some naval ships as well. And that might also come to India, right? Because there are Indian shipyards which are capable of, especially private shipyards, which are operating nowhere near capacity at the moment. The Katupalli shipyard of L&T is a very good example, which is already in a master ship repair agreement. I'm just citing examples. On top of that, they would also want to push arms sales to India as a means of, balancing trade with India. That is another thing that is definitely going to be on their agenda. Now, whether that is going to be to India's liking or not, we'll have to see, because India wants co-production and co-development, right? India wants technology sharing. Technology sharing, as you know, from the United States is never really that forthcoming. But now they are also keen. But they are now also keen on utilizing India's own defense industry and defense industrial capabilities to develop new systems. I'll give you an example. This what do you call it? Through Indus X, which is the India US defense accelerator, right? Through the Indus X mechanism, they have Boeing has already entered into an agreement with Sagar Defense. The Matangi USV that went 1,500 kilometers or navigated autonomously for 1,500 kilometers. So Boeing has already entered into an agreement into a collaboration with Matangi to develop USVs, a new generation of unmanned surface vessels. Right now, one of the people who was an early investor in Tesla, he is a major investor in this Odisha-based company. You must have heard of it. It's called Bonvi Aero, right? They came
Oh,
up with the air, or they are the one who gave that demonstration at Umlingla. Their sort of their drone, their drone lifted 30 kgs at Umlingla, right?
yeah.
And they have and they have a new logistics drone called Air Orca and all that. So this chap called Tim Draper, he's one of the big investors in this Odisha based startup, and Tim Draper was an early investor in Tesla and all that. I'm giving these illustrative examples to show that this is an arena where Indo-US cooperation is not going to be one way. They need India's technological capabilities also, and India's brains, and increasingly they are willing to pick it over here and not just get it there. Although they might, as we discussed with the Musk and company coming into power, they might try to do that even more. They might, but they are also trying to get it done over here as well. And they are investing in Indian defense startups and stuff like that. They observe IDEX, they follow IDEX very closely, by the way. Anyway, so the most important thing is the man who's been made who's the national security advisor, who's the pick, who's Trump's pick for national security advisor, Mike Waltz, who is co-chairman of the India caucus and all that.
Yeah.
He, in a recent talk, he clearly mentioned that he's entirely supportive of both ISET and IndusX.
Yep.
Right. So, Indo-US collaboration on the tech front will have to continue on the defense front, and that is two-way traffic. That is not one-way traffic. That is two-way traffic. There are both economic opportunities for the Americans, and there are also technological opportunities going forward, despite America being at the technological frontier and all that, right? So what I'm saying is that all the seeds for a balanced negotiation are there between India and the US on this whole trade and tariff front, because of other elements of the relationship, because of what America also wants to sell to India, because of the general complementarity between India and America in terms of geoeconomics at the moment, right? So so this is to answer that the first question itself. Should we be totally worried, and should we be weeping under our beds at night or something? Nothing of that sort. That should not be the case anyway. If the government stands firm, Trump or proto-Trump or quasi-Trump or no Trump, all are mitigable, right? All can be mitigated. It's a question of our own government standing firm, and I think they will be able to. Then there is because see, remember one thing: the highest effective tariffs on India were around 4% the last time over in the trade war, and in the case of China, the average tariff rate had become 18%. That is the kind of tariff Trump had put on China. And I won't be surprised if they do put 60% sooner than later.
He's mentioned it already. 60% is what I'm going to do to China. So
yeah, they are going to make sure that China does not remain a competitor for long. That they are going to go after China. Another thing, because Musk wants certain things from India, and he's definitely going to get Trump to lobby for that with India. Okay,
yeah,
that is another thing that we might have, another lever we might have. But it remains to be seen whether it's a lever for us or whether they don't really care and they're going to play it in a different way and try to use it as a lever against us. We'll have to see that. So these are the issues on the trade and tariff front. Of course, this is not the only issues. So now the question remains is, what should India do going forward? Okay. One thing is for sure, I'll say, don't enter into some multilateral trading agreement with China just straight off the bat or anytime soon. That would be a mess that will be a mistake of monumental proportions, a very big mistake. That mistake was avoided in 2019. I had written a fair bit about why RCEP doesn't make sense for India. I wrote about it in a detailed manner in my book also, Negotiating the New Normal, right? So that I've detailed that quite a bit, why it doesn't make sense. It did not make sense then. It does not make sense now, especially now.
Even more doesn't make sense now. Even more so.
Yes, even more so. Because trade, that is what can be from the US point of view, what is the best strategy? The best strategy is hit China real hard, let trade diversion happen, let the trade deficit that America has with China get broken up into smaller trade deficits with US partners with whom it has a lot more complementarity in terms of geopolitics and geoeconomics, and also countries with which it can negotiate better market access for the things it wants to sell. Vietnam, for instance, okay. Vietnam was a major beneficiary of the last tariff war and general China plus one and all. Did it happen that it escaped Trump's notice that Vietnam was doing so and so? It did not. But what did Vietnam do? Vietnam immediately started saying we are open to more arms imports from America. Okay. The Vietnamese Navy is going to start importing many vessels from America, by the way. So I'm giving an example here. So what they're going to do is they're going to break up that trade deficit with China into trade deficits with other countries, into smaller trade deficits with other countries, and make
Mm.
it a and all, which will also give them a much more. Now, what is the biggest risk here? Biggest risk here that China also agrees to a great bargain with America, as they had agreed, right, just before Trump went out of power. It was not a great bargain. Much of it was not implemented also, but they may agree to a grand bargain. Let's see if that happens. I don't think it's going to be so easy. I think China's game would be to intensify dumping all across the non-American world, and India will be a major target for them. By the way, okay, this is what the Chinese will try to do. Ah, because their dual circulation has not happened, with the real estate sector registering the lowest ever prices in the last 9 years. Their middle classes are not at all feeling confident about spending. So that rebalance to consumption, as we have discussed on the show before, is not happening in China. They have to maintain their export strength. Now, how are they going to do that? They'll have to think about it. They have the scale, obviously. They still have the production. They have secure critical mineral supply network also, which we don't have, by the way. We have to do that. And by the way, we are deep in talks with the Americans to do just that. And I have a feeling it's going to happen via America and its allies like Argentina, etc. Right? So that's going to be. We also want to revive domestic mining for that purpose. Again, it might be two-way street. There are things that America wants that may be mined in India as well in the future. We've had discussions with them on rare earths for a long time, right? Nothing new. And with the Japanese as well. And we have entered into JVs with the Japanese also for a
Yeah.
certain acreage in Odisha. So
I want to
anyway,
ask you just one last question before we kind of
Yeah.
come to the audience questions as well.
Yeah.
The factor that a lot of people would pitch India and China in this particular game, and you will find that a lot of the pro-China narrative will be saying that, boss, the US is favoring India. Look at them, they're not doing the same thing to us. They behave differently from China, differently with China, differently with India, and this and that. And then secondly, the whole factor of the dollar, right? The what we discussed last time, at least that time, the Trump regime hadn't come in, and we now know that Trump will actually push quite hard to keep the dollar in its place, to keep the dominance in its place, to keep this. What do you think is going to be the future for these alternative structures like BRICS, and all this sort of a thing? What's the game going to be going forward? Because that will also impact a lot as far as the trade economy is concerned of the world.
See, we are not going to be stupid enough to put all our eggs in the American basket, right?
Yeah.
Before, as I have written in my book over 3 chapters, before what is being done to China, Japan was a recipient of a similar strategy, was at the receiving end of a similar strategy in the 80s, right? The kind of strategy that is going to be used, that is being used against China. And Japan was under the US security umbrella, and it has been under the security umbrella ever since World War II, obviously. India must keep developing its independent defense capabilities, as I am probably the greatest advocate of forever, right? So, and it must make sure that America depends on India also for certain things, and it's not one-way traffic. Now, one thing is there. I'll give you. There was a Bloomberg computational general equilibrium model which suggests that if 60% tariffs are put on China and 20% tariffs are put on all US exports in general, okay, then the US share in world trade can fall by half, right? US share in world trade. This will not be auspicious for the dollar, naturally. Okay, because US exports will also be affected by countervailing duties from, retaliatory tariffs from other countries, and also from trade diversion from America, and so on and so forth. So, and the fact that US exports themselves require a lot of imports, intermediate inputs, and it will affect their competitiveness anyway. So, if they do that, but I don't think they're going to do anything of this sort. I think they're going to be very selective. And they're going to move in a way in which the smaller trade deficits result with like-minded countries, so to speak, where they also can negotiate better for market access for certain things, especially things that suit Trump's, backers and his base, especially
Yeah.
for those things, right?
Hmm.
And India is a natural outlet for some of those things.
Hmm. I think one
So
step you've taken with Starlink already. So,
hmm. Yeah, so we are telling them what the possibilities are. It's not like we are going to give them everything overnight.
yeah,
It's
of
that,
course.
there are pros and cons of any path. There are pros and cons to any strategy, any path. But
Absolutely.
we should be very clear about what we are willing to give and not willing to give. Oh, like in Hindi they say na, कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना पड़ता है.
No, but
Unfortunately,
absolutely. It's negotiation.
that is going to be the case. Now, किसका कौन खोएगा और कितना खोएगा ये हमें देखना पड़ेगा, ठीक है? And that is, of course, also contingent on domestic politics. We cannot let our farmers get hurt beyond the point. It's not about domestic politics, it's about our country itself. We have to
Protectionism.
protect our farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
protect the farmers to an extent for sure,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
We have to in any case, whatever, by any moral or humane or any nationalistic point of view, that has to be top of the agenda. But we
Mm.
might still be able to yield a little bit because we have taken a very maximalist view on things also over the years. We might be able to yield a little bit. But the other strategy that we just now, sort of reorder ourselves and become pally with China on the trade front again to balance America, I don't see any merit in that argument. I think that is a self-serving argument being given by certain vested interests inside India. Okay, I don't see that argument have holding water. America is the world's largest consumer market, even today, in nominal terms. America is a country that cannot possibly reshore most of the manufacturing that has been offshored from it. There won't be reshoring, there'll be more friendshoring only. Though, and the
Yeah.
friendshoring that will happen, will happen in such a way that the sectors that Trump likes get market access. Let's put it that way. And there is a lot of scope for India to gain from such a kind of outlook, such an
That's all
outlook.
high technology
Okay.
then. That's all high technology then. So that's advantage
Yeah.
advantage.
So no, but it's also minerals, right? Minerals, crude,
Yeah, that's
petroleum,
there. But for me,
right?
the most
Raw
important thing
material.
would be the high tech, which is Trump is getting backed
Yeah,
by a lot of the tech guys.
we are a
Uh,
mineral hungry country, aren't we?
yeah,
And
yeah,
especially
yeah,
if we
yeah.
can diversify to manufacturing,
Mm.
in the sense that we can increase our the size of our
Productivity.
depth,
Mm.
size and depth, and obviously productivity of our manufacturing estate. Although productivity may mean we use less minerals per unit of output, right? But but the
Yeah,
overall, but the
but
overall, yeah. Yeah, but productivity to be competitive, otherwise we won't be competitive, right? So what do you call that? So if we have to increase the size of our manufacturing estate, we have to basically secure a critical mineral supply chain. And I see a lot of complementarity between India and the United States on that front.
that front.
It'll be
Yeah,
another 15 years before America comes after us. Let me be very clear.
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of course,
Okay,
of course. That
we
I
have a
agree.
window of 15 years. Let
Mm.
them get China first, because China is a clear and present danger to India's security and to India's sovereignty and to India's position in South Asia, whatever you want to call South Asia. I don't like that term anyway. In the Indian subcontinent, it is a
Mm.
clear. Of course, America also is a is a threat to the India's position, as we can see in Bangladesh. But with the Trump administration coming in, okay, with the Trump administration coming in, I have a feeling they are willing to barter away Bangladesh for something else. That will be the problem for Bangladesh going forward, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you
Ah,
never know, and
they,
you never know. Mm.
they may be more amenable, because you've seen the remarks by Lisa Curtis, right, from CNAS. Recent remarks by Lisa Curtis. Lisa Curtis, who
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
think
yeah,
tanker
yeah,
from
yeah,
CNAS.
yeah, yeah.
She was in the last Trump administration. The remarks were much more balanced than the usual remarks coming from the American establishment. About Hasina being an evil dictatorial incarnate, right? And Yunus being the best thing after cheese, etc. So, so the thing is, what I see a lot of scope for negotiation, and I also think that the Indian side must stand firm, which I think it will. And what the future portends is that there will be trade diversion from China, and we might be in a position to gain from it. In fact, we should gain from it, provided we keep working on the basics, which is lowering the cost of production, the cost structure of production in India. That is what we'll have to do. Okay. Maybe we'll have to reform labor. We'll have to introduce some new labor codes while protecting labor. Look, I will always pipe up for labor and farmers. Okay, to the right extent, not to a crazy extent where we lose all sense of balance and put in place counterproductive policies or something. That is not good. The labor laws in India probably need to be reformed. They need to be brought to an even keel. The new labor codes are not bad. They can be looked at even more closely and tweaked a little bit, and then they can be used in the new, the new huge, the huge manufacturing zones that are being created. Right, the integrated manufacturing zones that are going to be created in the coming months. They can be implemented over there. New labor codes can be tried out over there. We have tried this SEZ model, SEZ kind of thing before also. It's not particularly new. So the thing is there. So that's where we should be. We should be clever. I think an opportunity beckons. Hmm.
Absolutely. Let's get into questions, guys. Request everybody, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it, because a lot of propaganda is running around the place. Oh, up to gaye, up to gaye, up to gaye. There are people who already started beating their chests and stuff like that, and it's really funny. Because one thing, if I know Trump, I know one thing: he's a pragmatic businessman, and you can deal with such people. He likes to do these deals, he likes to do these negotiations, which is what our guys are bloody good at. Yeah, Modi ji and all these guys are bloody superb in doing negotiations and stuff like that. So I don't think there is a problem in that sense. So please like, subscribe, and let's get into your questions. But before that, my request to everybody is, if you guys can, please do contribute towards this channel using the QR code or the PayPal or super stickers or super chats, or you can also become members, which is what it's me thinking. Anand Iyer, Deepak Luthra ji, all three of you have done. Thank you so much. And KV Maybe, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. Wonderful. Thank you so much for becoming the Superman for the show. Girish Joyce ji, thank you so much for becoming a member. And I think that's as per that for the memberships. Let's see. Partha ji, thank you so much. Any update on Enbridge? I think BIS just wanted to wanted to help oil sellers and buyers outside. Dollar, IMF, SDR, they withdrew even more so ahead of Trump's second term. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't.
So that's what. Huh?
I don't know. I'm not very sure with regards to. I don't know. What do you think about this? This is it's a different new thought. I'm not really pondered onto this.
It's not going to be easy to start pricing commodities in something other than the US dollar. Let's put it that way. And
Hmm.
especially with Trump being there, it's not going to be easy at all. Because Trump believes in strategic trade policy and strategic negotiations on every matter. Right. And of course, somebody will say he has no strategy, it's all tactics. No, not really. There is clearly a strategy. The strategy is also to show your teeth, show America's teeth to its partners, so that they also give what America wants. And it's not something that went on only will happen only during the Trump administration. Let us not forget that Biden also did nothing to reverse the veto that Lighthizer had exercised at the WTO. Biden did not revive the dispute resolution mechanism at the WTO either. Did he? He did not. So it's quite clear that there is some sort of bipartisan consensus in the United States to keep the WTO aside, to sideline the WTO more and more. In fact, if the EU and China and others push back against America at the WTO, India will be more than happy to take America's side in keeping these things in abeyance. Because I'll give you an example. Since that 2019, since the breakdown of the appellate authority in 2019 at the WTO, there has been a lot of discussion in ministerial conferences about streamlining the process at the appellate body, about bringing more transparency in a bid to get America to re-endorse the appellate authority, right? And guess which country has not been has not really liked all that is being discussed and has said that it doesn't do enough? You got it right. The Republic of India. Okay. So if Trump and company want to scuttle WTO further, India will be the partner in crime with them on that. Of course, this will run contrary to the advice being given by many trade economists in India, that no, India should instead go the other way and drop its traditional obstructionism at the WTO and instead strengthen the WTO mechanism, so on and so forth. It remains to be seen whether that is the right course of action or not. Yeah, like I
KV
said,
maybe.
India,
Sorry.
US, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I'll, yeah.
KV maybe. Thank you so much. How do you see India's interest in Guyana's oil reserves amid Maduro's claims threatening regional stability and energy security? The guy is really
So,
crazy, huh? He wants to take over. Uh, he wants to take over that Esquiro region in
yeah, yeah.
Guyana. Yeah.
So neither India nor the United States are going to let Venezuela march into, Western
Not to,
Guyana. It's not going to
yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Okay, just not going to happen. And in fact, yeah, I'm glad that this was brought up. See, the thing about Guyana is Guyanese oil coming into the market is another one of those factors that can bring down the price of oil, at least dent the price of crude on the world stage. Now, whether Trump and company want that to happen or not, I don't know. Only they can answer. India definitely wants it to happen. There's no doubt about it. Okay. But American oil majors may also want it to happen. They are also eyeing Guyanese acreages, right? They are eyeing Guyanese offshore, Guyanese acreages. They have had
But
their eyes on
Americans are
Guyana for a
already
long time as
Ameri-
well.
Americans are already invested. Shell and everybody is already invested in Guyanese oil.
Yes, they are. What I'm saying is that they're looking to increase output. Right,
That's
all the
fine.
big ones, big oil in America is definitely already invested in Guyana,
Hmm.
but they're looking at many new acreages also in Guyana,
But that won't
acreages
happen
which are
under Maduro, right? That will happen with the Guyanese being there, not with under Maduro. Oh, you're at mute. No.
not
Yeah.
going to let Maduro come in there just like that. Maduro is in no position to come in there. Even
Okay.
if Russia and China arm Venezuela to the teeth, they will not manage to capture Western Guyana.
I think your mic got disconnected, so just reconnected. Your voice just went off.
Adi, I can't hear you now.
Oh yeah,
I
your
don't know
mic
what.
got disconnected. That's all.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, much better. Awesome.
Okay, right, good.
All right. Vivek says we must cut deals that are required to further our national interests as well as our security. Rest Trump can continue with his nuances inside USA and elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. He can continue with he can continue with whatever nuisance he wants to do inside America. Uh, America, as far as I can see, America, if divided against itself, is not a bad proposition for India at all. Okay,
Yeah.
because this notion that America will somehow be a bulwark for us against China is not correct. If America opens its market to us, that will be of benefit to us. It is
That's true.
far more, India has far more complementarity with America in that sense, right? It does have complementarity on the defense and technology side as well, and I'm myself a votary of ISET and all that, but with caveats. There are caveats there. Ah,
True. Thought
yeah.
provocator. Thank you. Will WTO go WTF and Islamabad Monetary Fund shut down? IMF.
WT has already gone WTF to an extent, as I have outlined. Okay, right? It has already gone WTF to an extent, and let us see what happens in the next year or so. Now, the as far as Islamabad is concerned, I don't know. Islamabad is an attack dog for the United
No, no,
States.
no,
Okay.
no, no, no.
Ah.
Islamabad Monetary Fund is IMF actually.
Oh, IMF. So IMF is currently in talks with unscheduled talks with Pakistan for another $7 billion tranche, right? Now, whether that will go ahead or not, that depends on what Trump and company want from Islamabad, which we'll have to see. Because Islamabad, as you know, is a global attack dog. It's an
Hmm.
attack dog for hire, right? The country basically runs on geopolitics. That is that, quite literally, because it lives on one bailout to the next, right?
Trust
The
me,
only
trust
things.
me, trust me.
uh,
Not for long. Not for long.
so only one bailout to the next. Adi, the one thing about Pakistan, remember, it has got nuclear weapons. Okay, that is the one thing
Trust
that
me,
has.
bro. I'm telling you. Watch tonight's show. ठीक है, with Raja Munib. I'm not joking. They are in deepest possible shit now. I have not seen Pakistan this badly off.
The
And I'm
Adi,
not
to be
sure even if they can fire their nuclear weapons anymore.
no
Because
Adi, I don't think we can take that for
yeah, you can't take it
granted.
lightly. You can't never take it
No,
lightly. They've got that
because
very thing
uh,
which is
no, we
there.
can't take that.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
we
absolutely.
can't
Pooja,
we
please
can't
continue.
take we can't take solace in some nuke theory of Pakistan. I don't think they are nude. Otherwise, they won't
Uh,
even have survived this far. Ah,
isn't it possible that even when the old Indian corporates had to survive on the global scale, the deep state negotiated way away the Indian corporates' right to innovate? Look at COVID vaccine examples. Good
the
observation.
only the only thing that negotiated Indian corporates' right to innovate was Indian corporations themselves because of
Yeah,
their very skewed and anti-diluvian outlook. They are always looking at low risk propositions that can be scaled up quickly, and that is what their shareholders also like. That's what the promoters of these corporations also like. It's the sad truth,
true.
unfortunately. Okay,
Akshay,
very few of
I
them really want to innovate.
Akshay
Uh,
Ayerji, thank you so much. Indigenous R of yours is awesome.
okay, that is the program that I used to do, which I am thinking of reviving, by the way, Adi.
You should.
Indigen- eh, Indigenization appreciation R.
You should.
I'm going to, yeah,
Honestly,
I'm going to change.
it's just
Hmm.
honestly, you should. Let me know if I can help.
Yeah, certainly. Any help you give would be welcome.
Well,
And
Mr. Rao says what Sir said about Narayan Murthy is correct. I'm personally a victim of that. They gave me an offer letter with joining date 6 months from the offer date, and then at the end moment extended it. Backups, backup. Thank you so much for your contribution. Can you imagine? Sarvani, sorry, let me just take his part two of the question. He says, thank you, Mr. Rao. He says, this was 2 years ago. Last month, again, they sent the joining date for March 2025. What can be done to control this, sir? I'm glad I kept this offer as backup. What can the government do to control this? Acha. So they played backup with you, and you played backup with them. Awesome.
you see, the moment the government says I'll introduce a new labor code for the IT sector, that's when all hell will break loose. Okay. So it's like this, Adi. It's what has happened is the left in India has completely abdicated what it was supposed to do for labor and farmers. It can just act as a disruptive force on the streets for God knows which interest. What is required now is a more centrist approach is required, in which we look at the new sectors of India and we create a platform for providing support to workers in those new sectors. Just
Yeah.
like we need to support blue collar, we need to support white collar workers as well, right? But what people like Narayan Murthy and all are doing is they've already sounded the bugle. They're sounding the bugle, by the way. This talk, this constant public talk, boss, you need to work 70 hours, you need to work 80 hours, you need to work 90 hours. What is this? This is nothing but preparation for the coming war that is going to happen. You see, white collar workers in India are being exploited. This is the sad reality. Blue collar workers have also been exploited, especially in the unorganized sector, obviously. In fact, in the organized sector, blue collar workers started getting a better deal from 96, 97 onwards at places like Tata Steel, where a worker would get paid 25,000 rupees, a supervisor would get 40,000, etc. This is not the standard everywhere. There's a lot to be done. But organized sector workers in India have actually been taken care of also at some level. It's another matter that organized sector employment has not grown. Manufacturing employment at the kind of level that we want, and the Indian corporates would say that is because you are giving too much support to unions, etc. Anyway, that's a different discussion. But
Interesting.
white collar workers in India require support. It is the truth. They require support. We are not giving them the kind of support they need. Just like
Yeah,
we can't really support farmers with small holdings properly, we end up supporting farmers with
you
large
have
holdings.
you have
Ah,
someone supporting your comment, and Sarvani ji says, thank you. Firstly, we need to revamp the basic salary structure and paid in India. Infosys, Wipro, TCS, Intel pays very less. It feels like Techno East India company. This is the reason why a lot of people move abroad. She also says, thank you. I agree with Mr. Murthy, but only while building my own empire, not others. our IT sector is working on tech goals of the West by providing labor. Some very
Most
hard
certainly.
observations.
Look, what did Asemoglu say recently? One of the three people who won the the Bank of Swerage's prize for the Nobel Prize for Economics. He said that India has to move from being a hothouse of talent to being a hothouse of innovation. Okay,
Yeah.
we are subsidizing superb talent for the United States. We've done it for all the defense majors in America. We are doing it for Mr. Musk also quite a lot. Okay,
Hmm.
we are doing it for almost all the big corporations of America, and we are doing it both directly and indirectly. We are doing it directly by sending people over there, and we are doing it indirectly by running these IT hothouses in India, right?
Mm.
So we've done it in both ways. We've done it in more than one way.
Mm.
So the thing is that we have to look at what else can we do. What else can we do? Right?
True.
Somebody had a question.
Yeah, thought provocator. There are about 10 questions left, so let's just finish them up. Thought provocatory, thank you. In obsession for high tech is traditional manu or traditional
Manufacturing.
manufacturing
You may,
ignored.
yeah. Okay, this is actually this question actually requires a deep, detailed answer. But I'll just say a few things off the just not off the top of my head, but just a priority. First of all, no sector today, no manufacture sector today can be called traditional anymore. Okay,
Yeah.
even something like textiles requires a lot of high tech support, requires a lot of in situ R&D, right? It is not some nothing is unaffected by the larger technological wave that the world is seeing today. And another thing is that increasing returns to scale matter a lot in the traditional sectors where there is lock-in by certain countries. I gave examples. I gave I gave the example of China earlier and Bangladesh in terms of textiles also. Of course, sometimes windows open to pry out things from them also. Maybe such a window is open right now, but it's not easy. The kind of scale which is built up and the kind of learning by doing capability built up just in that sector, this is true for India's IT sector also. Those
Mm.
advantages do matter, and they continue for a while. They don't erode that quickly. So the thing is, to answer this question is, India has to climb the value chain because India is a bit of a peculiar country. On one side, you have huge small holdings by farmers. You have a lot of small and marginal farmers on the other hand. On the other side, you have DRDO, DAE, ISRO, which have which are able to send probes to the moon, which are able to launch MIRVs, which are able to create state of the art platforms and weapon systems, right? And are able to build tens of reactors on your soil. So obviously you must use, in fact, this is what the West has always been scared about, that because of the cheap scientific manpower available in India, techno scientific manpower, it might be able to beat them in those areas that it thinks it is that it thinks it is privileged to rule, right? That is the whole point. That is why the technology denial regime against India. That is why Indian scientists have been under threat for so long. I'm sure you know about how many scientists wash up
I
dead in
mean,
India, right?
yeah.
Especially from the Department of Atomic Energy, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, India is a peculiar country. It will turn out that India's comparative advantage is revealed to be in these high tech sectors more than some of the traditional manufacturing sectors
Yeah.
also. But India is a very large country, right? It is a country, it is the most populous country on earth. There are large parts of India which can actually probably price out large parts of traditional manufacturing from the places which have built scale. And I'm talking about Bihar and West Bengal, Odisha, and Jharkhand. These places need to be now. They people need to invest properly. The central government has to take a leading role in pushing these places to the next level. Even if the state governments are not the most alacritus in the world or anything. That new, for instance, there is that new manufacturing zone, integrated manufacturing zone, which will come up at Gaya, right, in Gaya district. That has to be a key focus of the central government, in my view. That has the potential to divert a lot of textile trade from Bangladesh, lot of textile exports. They can, that needs to be focused on. So that's your answer. See, you cannot expect peninsular India and other places which are now already at $4,000 per capita and have done a lot on these high tech sectors also, to now suddenly leave all that and look at traditional manufacturing. Okay, they have to keep climbing the value chain. West Bengal also has to. West Bengal, in fact, despite all that has happened to West Bengal, the travails of the last 75 years, West Bengal has that one institute, by the way, which America has partnered with for quantum computing. You would note that, Adi. Okay. West Bengal has a lot of industrial scientific strength. It's just not utilized. It's utilized more in Bangalore and in Chennai than it is done in Calcutta. So I expect to see movement there as well over time. Already there was a British UK High Commission has arranged a very large delegation of British semiconductor and AI companies, has organized a delegation to Kolkata of these AI and semiconductor companies, right? So the things are moving at multiple levels. How it pans out, we'll see. But in my view, the coming of Trump affords opportunities for India. There were very hard negotiations ahead, but there is no need to hide under the bed, as far as I'm concerned.
Parthaji,
Okay.
thank you. How do you see China asking for their companies not to share car EV manufacturing tech with India, and Turkey just a loud, non-lethal part, no more? I
Well,
agree.
that will. I have talked a lot to to 3 Indian conglomerates who are interested in this. Basically, their view is the same. We want a 51% JV with the Chinese manufacturer. Okay, I won't name them. You can guess their names easily. They all want a 51% JV structure. In fact, they were the ones pushing behind the scenes to bring relations back to some kind of normal between India and China. So they seem to think that they can leverage these JVs quite well for their own benefit. But I don't know whether they will be able to or not. That also depends on how much they invest. Because don't forget one thing about the Chinese. When the Chinese opened their economy, when they created those special economic zones along the eastern coast of China, and they got American companies to invest, and Taiwanese and other East Asians to invest. They also created these Soviet style training and R&D institutes in that industrial zone, whose sole purpose was to work on the things that were being brought in, so that they could absorb, to do R&D, so that you could absorb the technology that was being brought in. In India, this has never happened to the same scale, or anywhere near the same scale, which is why you see that company which was dependent on a British collaboration in the pre-independence arena continue to depend on some other foreign collaborator even 75 years later. Okay. The only thing you hear from some of the largest Indian corporates is, oh, we have just entered into a fantastic new JV with such and such player from such and such country. This is all that you hear. You never see them saying that this is our technology. We developed it in-house. We have some 27 patents have come out of our efforts in this domain, and we are now going to lead the world in this sector. You never hear them saying anything of that sort. There you have it, Adi. There's your answer
All
right there. Last
Anoopji,
question,
thank you.
Adi.
We've got super chats. Let's just finish them.
Okay.
Remember, forever finish them.
Yeah.
Anoopji, thank you so much. You say, privileged to ask a brilliant economist, where does he sees the prospects of to enter a small manufacturing product opportunities with upside in the near future?
The main opportunities I see are in the supply chain for various defense products. You can easily become a tier 2 or tier 3 player in the component in a defense supply chain, and you will have export opportunities also.
That's true. Praveen Singhania ji, thank you so much for your contribution. Anukul ji, thank you so much. Saurav sir, great fan. Thoughts on Jade 35? Why do we buy F-35 or KF-21 as a buffer for AMCA? Wide defense budget is falling. Engine deal. US manufacturing China. Who said the defense budget is falling?
Well, they will say in terms of real terms, in terms of inflation. That's what they will say. They will say that the defense budget is falling not in nominal terms, but in real terms. See, I'll say one thing, okay? When we put OROP into place, we accepted that the capital budget will not grow at the same rate as it had begun to grow before OROP. Okay. We accepted that at some level. Having said that, the capital budget is still substantial, the defense capital budget. Now, as far as these things are concerned, I think this is beyond the scope of this session, because it's on very peculiar,
Defense.
very specific things related to defense. But I'll say one thing: if India does not find a way to make these happen, then India should reconcile to being a second-tier country in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Okay, India has to make it
Dinesh,
happen.
Dinesh ji, thank you so much. When IMF, World Bank exposed fake China GDP and growth rate, some people still believe in $19 trillion, and by 2030 it'll be $28 trillion. Same old shit, adding 1 trillion every year, demoralizing India. Yeah, well.
Well, but these are all nominal GDP figures, na? Look at Turkey. Turkey's nominal GDP has increased a lot because its inflation, because its rate of inflation is over 70% to 80%. Over 70%. So, if you look at the market value of goods and then you use that to compute GDP, as in the case of nominal GDP, it will seem as if an economy is increasing a lot. But whether that has actually happened because of a real increase in production or not, that you can only tell if you look at real GDP figures. In the case of China, to be fair to them, they are of course in deflation and all, but their real GDP figures, their actual production, it's not their nominal GDP that we should be concerned about, because that is not inflated. It's their real GDP figures itself that we need to be a little circumspect about. Not fully, I'm not a votary that they are fudging everything across the board. They do fudge, there's no doubt, because there have been reports from their internal reports have been there of provinces fudging. So it's not like it's just a conspiracy that we are talking about or something. That is not the case. They have fudged in the past, no doubt. And as far as but remember one thing: this nominal GDP game in dollars depends on two factors. One is of course inflation. Three factors: real GDP growth, actual production, inflation, and the USD exchange rate with your country. Now, in the case of some countries, what happens is inflation is running strong, but the USD exchange rate with that, the currency does not depreciate as much. It definitely depreciates because people will leave that country, but it does not depreciate as much. And the net result is it seems as if its nominal GDP has grown a lot, but actually its production, its real GDP may not have grown at all because of being a high cost inflationary economy. So those are there. Let us not be worried about this. Let us be worried about building strength, increasing our technology, diversifying our economy further, building manufacturing strength, because even services strength in the future is also contingent on manufacturing strength. It's not like services will exist in a vacuum forever. It won't happen. And you will face non-tariff barriers across the board. So we must build manufacturing strength, and we must now invest in R&D across the board. For 0.6% of GDP doesn't work. I'm sorry. It has to increase to at least 1% in the next 2 years itself, and 1.5% in the next 6-7 years. Minimum.
Finance valuation, thank you so much. It's very difficult to India to be price competitive vis-a-vis China because we have too many hurdles at every level. Labor regulations, law to be specific, what say?
So that is the old, whenever this word comes up, some people are triggered and they go into an apoplectic fit. The word is called disability. Okay. Disability. India has apparently a 7 to 11% disability vis-a-vis China and Vietnam in certain important sectors. Now, the whole point of removing, one of the ways in which that disability is sought to be removed is, of course, by improving India's performance on the logistics side, right? By making India top 25 logistics performance bringing India into the top 25 as far as the logistics performance indicator is concerned. Another is simplifying labor laws, bringing new labor codes. Then, of course, people will talk about the cost of borrowing itself. The cost of capital in China is obviously much lower than India, but then they're in deflation. Their central bank, in any case, has been easing forever, as I've discussed elsewhere. So other things can be done. One thing that the government can do is it can give, support on the cost of borrowing side to specific sectors for some time, as it has done in the past. But it has to be done very cleverly. Again, whether it'll trigger WTO or not, we'll have to see. Whether the total support that is given, others will say that all the support that you're giving in terms of subsidy exceeds your legal obligations at the WTO, so on and so forth. And there'll be, but then thanks to America, there is no appellate court at the moment for disputes to be resolved, right? So it's interesting, but we have to work on the manufacturing side. It's not like we don't manufacture anything. That is not the case. Our manufacturing output is also substantial. It's not what China does. China's is several multiple of us, but it's not like we don't manufacture things, and we are very much a top 10 manufacturer in the world in terms of total value of output. Okay, and we are rising on the along in the ranks over there. Have been rising for a while. Once we reach 1 trillion, will be basically equivalent to the other two big manufacturers. So the only people who will stay ahead of us going forward will be basically America and China, and we'll have to beat them at some point if we want to beat them. It may be that we don't want to beat them. We'll have a more diversified economy anyway. See, that's the other good thing about India. India does not need to become the next China and account for 25% of global manufacturing output. Even if we reach 10% of global manufacturing output, that will be good. That should be our overarching target, actually. Right? We don't have to 25 to 33%, like in the case of China. We don't have to reach that number. China, I think, is at over 30% at the moment. We don't have to reach that number at all. We don't have to concentrate all manufacturing on our territory. In any case, that's not an environmentally sound path either, right? So that is also there.
Thank you, thought provocatory. Thank you. This fellow Murthy damaged India. He recruited huge number of freshers from engineering school, even non-IT background, leading to talent shortage, in quality issues in core engineering and manufacturing.
Well, that is what a doyen of manufacturing in India once told me, that the liberalization era was basically a double-edged sword. A lot of engineering talent. Why do you have a country where you are graduating 600,000 engineers? You should have, if you are graduating 600,000 engineers, generally it should mean that you are very focused on manufacturing. Otherwise, Why the hell are you graduating 600,000 engineers every year anyway? To turn them into first code coolies and then bankers. Now, even that code coolie prospect is going away because of AI writing software by itself, right? Writing code by itself. So the whole point is that you have to focus on manufacturing. You cannot keep saying that we will not do this, we will not do that. We will find a smart strategy to move forward. Okay. Whenever in India somebody proposes something that has already been proposed before, they relabel it as smart. This is a smart strategy. Smart strategy going forward. We have 1.4 billion plus people. We have to focus on manufacturing also. Any Trump government...
Thank you so much. Any Trump government impact on G404 or MMRCA 2.0?
This is something I've thought about. They might use this as a bargaining tool, as part of the whole negotiations that we talked about. But I don't think we are going to yield the way they want.
Yeah. That seems quite sure. And last one, Anukulji, thank you, sir. Will the cost of capital go down in India? Food inflation is holding RBI hostage.
See, now there's this thing, right? In the United States, the Federal Reserve looks at core inflation while deciding the effective federal funds rate, the band for the effective federal funds rate. In India, for the equivalent benchmark rate, we do look at food inflation also. We look at CPI. And there is a reason for that. Studies inside the RBI have shown that core and CPI in India are quite correlated. Okay. So at the moment, they are not willing to drop the food inflation target. They are not willing to drop targeting CPI. Inclusive of food and energy, because food and energy are usually not included in the inflation target that you look at as a central bank, because they tend to be volatile. Like energy and food prices tend to be volatile. You don't really get the kind of information you want for setting your benchmark interest rate. But that is not true in India's case because of what I mentioned, which is why it is I don't see the RBI moving out of inflation CPI based targeting, CPI inclusive of food and energy that soon. Although there have been calls for that. I think there was some paper also and all that. But yes, at the moment, the RBI is definitely going to keep an eye on food inflation, which is just by itself was had a print of some 8%, I think. And overall CPI came in at 6.1 or 2 or whatever it was for last month. So they are definitely going to keep their eyes on it, and they're not going to go easy. I think in the last MPC they said they have a neutral outlook.
Yeah.
Right. So they will maintain a neutral outlook depending on what data they get in the next few months. But yes, that easing that we all wanted, I think that's delayed for a bit. So the person who asked the question is right in some sense.
Thank you so much, sir. This was a very, very knowledgeable session.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for joining in. And my request to everybody, please like the video. And before you sign off, please drop a comment so that it promotes the video even further. Share it with your friends and families. And big thank you. Namaskar and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.